Hi, this is Amir with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Tuesday, the 11th of July. Starting off with the FTSE, which is looking a bit down in the mouth at the moment. We had an attempt to rally through 7,300, managed to get to 7,306, and then faded. That does suggest, especially with the RSI turning down again, that there's a risk of another leg to the downside, perhaps down to around 70.70 and that November support line projection. But hopefully this market could avoid that, given how oversold we are, but you can't rule out a day or two of quick downside as we normally get at the turning points as we had back in March and in October, sort of an overshoot to clear out the weak hands. But the moment an end of day close back above 73.06 probably would be the first sign of a recovery here. Otherwise, as I said, there's the risk of sub 7100 on the FTSE. Moving on to the DAX, which has made a rather better show of things over the recent past. 15,700, the late June support, and we're trying to get back above that on an end-of-day close basis. If we do, then probably we'll be looking towards 16,100, the turn-of-the-month resistance, but at this stage, probably that's the best we have on offer. RSI is sort of in betwixt and between, around the low 40s, so not really giving us a message, apart from the fact that obviously it is below neutral 50, and then there is the risk of further tests for support. On to the Dow, which has been all over the place in the recent past. The current situation is that we bounced off the 50-day line, which was the expected scenario, not quite back above the old April 22 resistance line at 34,000, but really trading in a range either side of 34,000, which rather hurts the charting projections at the moment. RSI back above neutral 50, which is a plus, and probably the main plus here for this market is the way that both the 50 and 200-day moving averages are rising. So that does suggest we will eventually have a break, sustained break through 3,400, and then hit the top of that rising trend channel from March as high as 35,000 over the, well, basically by the end of the month. Below the 50-day line takes us down to the 200-day moving average at 33,000, but not expecting that yet. On to Bitcoin, which has been consolidating in a reasonable way over the last few weeks, probably rather frustrating for most, but floor of that gap there around 29,600. Want to see an end-of-day close above 31,000, which has been, we've been through that intraday, but not on a closing basis, and that end-of-day close above 31,000 could take us up to as high as 35,000 by the end of this month. On the downside, below 29,500, looking at 28,200 at the 50-day line, but not much lower given the way that the RSI is at 59 and in a good place in terms of upward momentum for this market. On to the stocks, and starting off with the stock I wasn't expecting to cover again, but I suppose that's been the case with Amigo for quite some time. Here actually looking quite positive on the basis that we had an unfilled gap to the upside back in June, and since then we've never filled that gap, and also we've had basically higher lows above a rising 50-day moving average. So if this wasn't Amigo, we would be looking to the upside quite keenly. In this case, probably up towards the 1 penny area would be fair, while we hold above that 50-day line at 0.45. So let's see if that rather unlikely scenario pans out. On to Allergy, and here you can see that apart from the rather painful price action, you can see that it's a bit like fusion antibodies with a sort of tentative recovery. Neckline resistance there around the 1.4 pence level. While we're above that, we've got a chance of maybe heading back to 2 or 2.25 pence, which would be a retracement of the big move down that we had on a partial retracement of the big move down we had back in June. But the key here is holding recent support around 1.4 pence. Below that could be painful again. On to BSF, which I suppose the shares are not really catching up with the big American breakthrough the company has had. Here we are actually breaking the 50-day line and that resistance line there from March, but really want to see the shares back up to the main sort of 2-month resistance or 1.5-month resistance around 16 pence before we can say that the worst is over from the retracement in February back from 24 pence. So key here is 14 and then 16 on BSF, but at least the RSI is pushed properly above the neutral 50 level, and there is also bullish divergence. So at this stage, only back below 12 would really dampen expectations of a recovery, maybe even a full recovery by the end of the summer. A stock which makes its debut here today is one with the rather strange epic code, D4T4 Solutions. It looks as though we're in we've had a bear trap from below the April support there at 163. Above that, looking for as high as £1.85 by the end of the month. Bullish divergence line there from the beginning of last month, and also that bear trap in place. The broadening triangle giving us the £1.85 target above the 50-day moving average at £1.80. This stage only back below the recent resistance around £1.65, really delaying the prospects of a turnaround, which could be hopefully more than £1.85. On to Empire Metals, where the market seems to be finally waking up to the strength of the recent fundamentals. We've had unfilled gap to the upside, bear trap gap reversal from below the rising 50-day line. We've now got the 50-day line rising, V-shaped bull flag, which is one of our favourites, and that suggests that we will see 3.4 or 3.5 pence perhaps as soon as the end of this month. So looking pretty chipper there at Triple E. On to Eco Atlantic, and here very decent news today with the $10.5 million in the kitty. Here we've got what looks as though it's a rising trend channel break, a bear trap from below the initial July support at 13 3/4. Above 13 3/4, we're looking for 17 or 18 pence at the top of that channel, perhaps as soon as the end of this month. But the key here is holding above that initial July support. Bullish divergence there as well, so a lower second low there for July, but higher RSI trace, and that is the probably at the moment the main backer of the idea that the shares will head higher. Onto a stock which I don't think anybody talks about anywhere, Great Southern Copper, which is perhaps a pity given the way that we've had decent news today. Beautiful hammer candle on Friday, as if somebody was guessing that there'd be good news today. There's also an uptrend line in the RSI window and an unfilled gap to the upside through a rising 50-day moving average. That suggests that while we're above the floor of the gap, 1.2 pence, we're looking for as high as 1.9 pence as soon as the end of next month. Let's see if anybody starts talking about the shares after this. On to a stock which has been rather painful in the recent past. I suppose most stocks have, but looks like with Haydale we've got a broadening triangle base. So we had that final bear trap there down towards below 0.9 pence. A gap closed buy signal soon after, later last month, and since then it's been up and away, breaking the 50-day line at 1.2 pence and above 1.2 pence on an end of day close basis, looking for 1.5 or 1.6 pence by the end of this month, even if the shares then fade again after that. A stock which has been a steady performer over the recent past is Longboat Energy. It looks as though we've got a rising trend channel here from back in December, broke the 200-day line at the end of last month and above that at 22 pence, looking for 35 pence as soon as the end of next month. But that unfilled gap to the upside, bear trap gap reversal, in fact it's an island reversal because we gapped down in March, very strong signal, and it shows or suggests that there's been a major re-rate or a change of the fundamentals on that stock. On to Mast, and here you can see that we had broken recent neckline resistance around 1.6 pence, and also found support above a rising, well above a rising 50-day line, so that's another positive signal there. Bounced off RSI 50 as well at the turn of the month, so everything going on here in a positive way. That suggests 3 pence as soon as the end of next month, with this sort of U-shaped turnaround that we've had, an unfilled gap to the upside, bear trap gap reversal that we've seen back in May. So pretty positive stuff there, surprisingly positive there at Mast. Moving along to Ondo, which is probably the star of the show this week. Beautiful updates yesterday and today. Unfilled gap to the upside. That's the second one in the last few months. The main one was back in April. And we had a gap higher yesterday, broken the high of yesterday, which is normally a decent continuation signal above 22 pence on an end of day close basis, looking for as high as 32 pence as soon as the end of next month, within that rising trend channel in place since back in March. On to the last three. Favourite here has been Panthera. I suppose a favourite if you're long of the stock, of course. Here you can see that we bounced off what was the old target there, around 6.25 pence, and it looks as though we're heading back to the second target, around 8 pence. If you look back at the chart and sort of go back towards the start of last year, you can see that there is a resistance line projection from March last year heading for 12 pence. So weekly close above 8 pence should be enough this time on the third attempt to get the shares up to 12 pence, maybe as soon as the end of next month. Uptrend line in the RSI window as well is also pushing the cause in a positive way. Onto Rainbow, which looks as though it might be might be sort of third time lucky in terms of breaking through that resistance line in place since last summer basically. We braked 12.75 pence on an end of day close basis, which it looks as though we may do today. Then it could be up to as high as 17 pence by the end of next month, especially while we remain above the 11 pence near-term support. Uptrend line in the RSI window as well, so we've also got the 200-day line rising, so it looks like the shares are heading into a golden cross, and the run-up to a golden cross tends to be the strongest part of the cycle, over and above that V-shaped bull flag, which is also a decent charting formation. Finishing off with a stock I'd say I've never heard of before, but looks like it's coming to life now. And here you can see that Spiritus Mundi breaking through the 200-day line at 2.35 pence. Above that, we're looking for a target which may be slightly ambitious, up to 5.25 pence as soon as the end of next month. But the rising 50-day line near the low, a decent signal. And as I said, it looks as though with that clean break of the 200-day line, while we're above that, we could see the share price head up to 5.5 pence. That's it from me today. More updates tomorrow.